The room felt confident. A Democratic lawmaker had just finished speaking with the kind of certainty that usually ends debates. His message was simple and firm. He claimed he had never supported cutting police funding, never supported defunding the police. Not once. He leaned into the moment, accusing Republicans of hypocrisy. He focused on a witness invited to a previous hearing, someone who had once posted an offensive comment about police officers. He argued that silence equals complicity. That failing to disavow meant endorsement. It sounded airtight. He even went further, publicly disavowing the defund the police movement himself. He aligned his position with President Biden, insisting that funding law enforcement was the right path forward. Then he turned the pressure back on Republicans, demanding they distance themselves from controversial remarks made by one of their own members about the FBI. The tone suggested finality. As if the argument couldn't be challenged for a brief moment. The room seemed settled. Then Andy Biggs stood up. He didn't interrupt. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't argue philosophy or policy. He thanked the speaker calmly. Then he made a small observation, almost a warning. There seemed to be some backpedaling happening across the aisle. People should be careful, he said. They might fall over backwards. Instead of debating words, he chose something else. Evidence. He announced that a video would be played. Just a visual summary, he said. That was all it took. As the screen turned on, the mood in the room shifted instantly. What followed wasn't commentary. It wasn't interpretation. It wasn't selective quotes. It was footage. One by one, familiar Democratic figures appeared on screen, speaking in their own voices. These weren't anonymous activists or fringe commentators. These were elected officials, recorded clearly. At a time when defunding the police was politically popular, the first clip rolled. Statements calling for police funding to be cut. Statements praising the removal of hundreds of millions from law enforcement budgets. Then Ilhan Omar appeared, arguing openly that the Minneapolis Police Department should be dismantled entirely. Not reformed, not improved, replaced. She explained that adding more officers didn't automatically make communities safer. The video continued. New York officials spoke about reallocating funds away from the NYPD. Some used careful language. Others were direct. Several openly said they supported the defund movement. Then Eric Swalwell appeared, stating plainly that funding would be reduced and redirected elsewhere. There was no ambiguity. And then came Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. Her clip didn't deny defunding the police. It criticized proposed budget cuts for not going far enough. She argued the reductions were insufficient. The push to defund, she said, should continue. That moment landed hard because it wasn't a misstatement. It wasn't taken out of context. It was dissatisfaction that police budgets hadn't been cut deeply enough. The clips kept coming. Different cities, different officials. Same theme. Defund. Redirect. Dismantle. By the time the video ended, the earlier confidence in the room had vanished. Minutes before, there had been speeches about accountability and receipts. Now, the receipts were on the screen, and they spoke for themselves. When the screen went dark, there was no explosion, no shouting. No counter. Video. No long rebuttal. Just silence. That silence mattered. Because when evidence is overwhelming, arguments stop eventually. A response came. One Democrat acknowledged that the offensive tweet about police officers was wrong and said the witness might not have been invited if they had known about it. But by then, the issue had already moved past that point. This was no longer about a tweet. It was about credibility. What made the moment powerful wasn't anger or humiliation. It was contrast. Moments earlier, there had been firm claims. We never supported defunding the police. Now, the record said otherwise. And records don't negotiate. This is why footage matters more than speeches. Why archives matter more than press statements. Why accountability in politics doesn't come from promises, it comes from memory. Political positions change. That's normal. public opinion shifts, strategies evolve, leaders adjust messaging. What erodes trust is pretending the past never happened. The video didn't accuse anyone of lying. It didn't add commentary. It didn't label motives. It simply played the past. That restraint is what made it devastating. Andy Biggs didn't raise his voice. He didn't attack personalities. He didn't demand apologies. He pressed play and let the footage do the work. This is why accountability moments resonate with audiences, not because people enjoy political conflict, but because they value consistency. Voters don't demand perfection. They demand honesty. If views change, explain why. If priorities shift, acknowledge it. What voters reject is being told something that directly contradicts what they can see with their own eyes. The hearing turned into a case study of how quickly confidence collapses when confronted with documentation. The tone shifted from assertive to procedural, from declarative to defensive, not because anyone shouted louder, but because proof had entered the room. This moment also revealed something deeper about modern politics. Narratives survive as long as they go unchallenged. Once challenged with evidence, they either adapt or disappear. In this case, the narrative disappeared. The footage wasn't ancient history. It wasn't obscure remarks dug up from decades ago. It was recent, clear, and enthusiastic support for policies that were now being disowned. That's the risk of speaking boldly when cameras are always on. Every statement becomes permanent. Years from now, messaging may change again. Political winds will shift again. Priorities will evolve. But the recordings will still exist, waiting. Because in politics, reputations aren't built only on what leaders say today, but on whether today aligns with yesterday. And when it doesn't, all it takes is one video to remind people. Politics may change, but recordings do not.